one of the two studios I have at the moment. And seeing that I'm busy now with the Beyeler, this is the last venue of the retrospective, and I'm trying to see how I can use my source material. I can show you, I've got it on the table here. In certain stages, I use my own Polaroids a lot because people make a big point of the fact that, you know, these days, again, you use source material from newspapers and found material, but I also use my own Polaroids, or Polaroids my daughter took of me. And even there you see how sometimes you use the hands of one and the face of another, so it's not always so one-on-one. This is the story about the skull of Charlotte de Chaudet, and the skulls also come back. Certain types of images come back throughout the period. I mean, it's a period of 40 years or so, almost, this show. So you see here all the, you know, the Holbein that is actually in Basel. The first time I ever saw the real Holbein painting was so important for me.
You're still struggling, huh, with it?
Yeah, I'm really still struggling with this, because actually there comes a point where you have to stop, because tomorrow they will come and collect the works. So so this is the one table in that room. Then there's also a table with drawings, which I'm going to show you. Oh yeah, but I want to show you something else, just one more thing about the, you know, this thing of showing your source material. I mean, this is something that I, you know, had no trouble with from the beginning, because in 92, 93, when I had this sort of solo exhibition in a museum misinterpreted in the Van Abbe Museum, then in that catalogue I already showed, it was then called the bank, the image bank. This is for the dead man, you know, and there's Lumumba already, I mean Paulina Lumumba, and the interest in woman who actually does political deeds and humor. Yeah, and the sexuality and the politics and things that look similar but are not the same. And that has always interested me. That also in my own work, the ambiguity of things that is almost the same but not. So in the selection also of these drawings, these smaller drawings, this is a copy of the original. I've got a few groups here of, and some older works from my student days, where I also was you know, I struggled with the fact if I actually did want to bring in the figure, because I love textures and chance, and you know, this isn't the sea, but it looks like the sea, or it feels like the foam of the sea. And then to use a, you know, a text, for example, with something that is basically abstract and it's not really a landscape, but, you know, and then you sort of use a poetic sentence. But also the interest in stereotypes, or you know, small Jewish girls, wise old men. You know, they could be Moses, they could be Freud, they could be God, they could be Muhammad, but I don't think I actually had him then, wasn't so interested in him. But you see, but also to see that even though the paintings look so finished and so clear, I think, these days, that actually my tendency is towards often a cartoon-like sketches. I come from drawing more than from painting. So, yeah, so here one, and some of these drawings I made after the paintings. I never make sketches for a painting. They are always works on themselves, but sometimes I do after a painting something. So this is then a different version of the image as burden. But as you see, I'm not so structured. It's not that I have this clean-cut series in boxes, I mean, where they always get mixed up and then I don't know where they are. This is also a version this way around after the painting Suspect, for example.
This is all for the drawing room.
This is all for this drawing room. And also, you know, this is the type of sketchbooks that I made at art school. You can see filled with text and my own little writings, but quotes and all. I had many of these type of books. Unfortunately, these days, I am so sorry that I have lost a bit of the playfulness of, you know, I don't really make sketchbooks anymore. And I wrote letters to the newspapers about, you know, all kinds of issues. And in here you also see the interest in the sexual parts that becomes abstract. If you look at immaculate or magnetic fields, you see there already. This was 1972, transformed, it was a project. You know, and after my father's death, also the interest in things like what type of cards do you receive, what, you know, roses, and the symmetry of fascism. You know, not that I understood everything, but all the interests in the relationship between text and image, they were already there.
Why is this drawing room so important for you, to show drawings?
Yeah, well, I think for me, that is where my art actually comes from the fact that I always liked to draw. I could draw fast. I never drew from life. It's not that, you know, I started with the model and then I wanted to get loose and all that. I always used my imagination and things from the popular culture, like the cartoons or the bikini girls. And so for me, drawing has, yeah, some of the drawings is at the Tate, which is going to Beyeler. For example, this is a card of the Miss World. This was when I was young, where I just, you know, drew these types. So I mean, the newspapers in South Africa was filled with pictures of Miss World, Miss everything, you know. There was a Miss for everything. And then there's the politics. But so I didn't actually drew the, you know, copy the photograph, but I was influenced by the things that was in the newspapers sometimes. Anyway, but yeah, so that's, I think I'm going to take you now rather to the painting studio where I'm supposed to be painting, but with retrospectives you never get to paint. We can go through here. When they write about me, they always talk about, you know, her immense archive, which I also think is a bit, gives the wrong impression, because, you know, this is sort of the archive, but also, you know, that you have a category and then the category changes again. First you had males and females, for portraits of men, portraits of women. Then you get another category, portraiture in general. And then you get, you know, you have Jesus and Mary Magdalene, but then you have female martyrs. So every time the categories change, and it's not only pictures, it is often also text, you know, about how color is used in prisons or whatever. So, yeah.
But you still collect source material.
Yeah, and sometimes I collect it not necessarily because I want to paint it, but because I want to read about it later, and then I never get to read it either. And here you see three. I've got more of them, but we only selected three of drawings that I made with my daughter. One of the first times we made drawings together, in the sense I made the blob, she made just the eyes and the so.
What was that?
And this is about 1993, sort of. But why I like them so much is this is sort of the basis of the face. And at the moment I have got some skulls in Venice in the exhibition there. Here I continued making one little skull to go with these guys, because for me the skulls were also inspired by this sort of essential, because portraiture is one of my big loves, and actually the skull is you could say either the last portrait or the first portrait, and this is also, you know, how a child starts to react to the human face. You know, I've got a bit of a funny studio, because a big part of the studio is actually just a passage, you could say, a gang, you say in Dutch. You could say it's a bit wasted space, but on the other hand, I just love books and magazines, and yeah, I thought I should take them all away and not look at them all the time. But as you see, I'll never really, I think, ever become an organized person. I mean, in the sense of, you know, the studio. And it's nice and dark in here. I mostly paint at night because, yeah, nighttime is then the only time where I start to calm down and be concentrated, because I have so many other people, things, and that distract you. And when I start to paint, then I always start by taking out all the paintings that hasn't actually, you know, wasn't finished, didn't work. So I always have to, there's a quote by Francis Bacon, who, I think it was him, who said, I have to live with the mess and the memories. So I never start totally, you know, anew. And also then, you know, so there's always these things that doesn't quite work. You know, I wanted to do Heidegger and Hannah Arendt's, the couples, but maybe it will work some other time. But so I have to look at them again. And then, yeah, you know, I tried to make another group for the Beyeler, but I don't think, I don't know, it looks a bit like the Witches of Goya. And also, you know, you start somewhere, and then, you know, then you see a different picture of some of the girls that has, yeah, they said that they have gotten away. And anyway, so this is very interesting. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, you know, so sometimes, you know, you don't really know exactly where you want to go with something, or if you will at all finish it or use it. Yeah, it is terrible. I'm quite unkind to my medium. And after all these years, I have given up that I will ever put on the, you know, this one shouldn't, you shouldn't do this, you know, you should put it back. And you know, but this is the problem with retrospectives, you know, look, poor brushes.
What do you mean, could you explain? You have no time to paint.
I have no time to paint, but also, you know,
all you do is sitting behind the computer to...
Yeah, you're trying to reorganize your past and decide, you know, do interviews and make films to tell people you think you are and what you think you've done. And you, yeah. So it's a sad story.